friends, today I'm going to review Last Bus to Everland by Sophie Cameron. I received an ARC of this through Edelweiss in exchange for an honest review, and this book is released in the US on June 18th, but it already came out in the UK. Last Bus to Everland is a YA fantasy that is about this place called Everland, and it is basically this portal fantasy world. There's several doors all throughout the world, and it is just this magical place. Like, it basically has all of the combined things of a good portal world. It has like a market, it has like this big library, it has a lot of like really beautiful nature, and in this story we follow Brody, and he one day finds this group of people who take him to Everland. And I don't want to say more about the plot at all. I didn't know anything going into it except that it was a portal world, and I was really happy, not really knowing anything else about it. So that is everything I'm going to give you on the plot. But obviously, always while reviewing, there will be more plot points that I talk about anyway. So I really enjoyed this. I thought that this was a really interesting look at like portal worlds and what it means, and especially just the way this works. You know, we have stories like Alice in Wonderland where she like kind of falls and accidentally ends up in this world, and this is like so not conscious decision, because he doesn't really know what he's signing up for when he leaves with this group, but it's just this door that shows up at the same time at the same place every week. And so it's something that once he kind of learns of it, he does every week very consciously. It's not something that he just like accidentally gets into. It's something that he knows exactly when to leave. And I just really like that take on this world. At the same time, I feel like, I mean, yes, it is technically a YA fantasy, but at the same time, for me, it's almost more like a YA contemporary, because a lot of the themes in the book are very contemporary. This fantasy world, and this is very similar to Sophie Cameron's debut novel, Out of the Blue, this fantasy world really doesn't have the usual elements of fantasy you would expect, or the usual themes. It is really just kind of a tool for storytelling and a tool for character development, and that is something that I immensely enjoy. I really like those kinds of stories, and I think that this very much delivers on it. That said, I do think that my biggest gripe with this book was probably the fact that I think the world building was not enough. Not in the sense that I needed an explanation. I just think that I wanted this world to be described in much more detail. I just wanted to feel this place. I wanted to just have this like lush writing and just feel that it's like this whimsical place, and it just kind of didn't come across for me at all. And I think that is really, for me, the biggest criticism with this book. I really wanted to be much more involved in Everland, because then also the way this world affects the characters would have made much more sense, or would have been, well, it's easy to understand the thoughts and feelings they have about this world anyway. You know, it's there, but I just wanted to feel it myself. I wanted to be like, oh my god, I wish I could stay in this place. I wish we would never leave this place. And I just feel like we didn't really get that. And I think that this novel totally could have gained a lot by just describing this world in more lush ways. But then again, as I said, this book reads much more like a contemporary. So at the end of the day, this is not so bad. This really deals a lot with friendship, with family dynamics, and just coming of age. So I get that, you know, this is not the most important part of the story. I just wanted it to be more. I think especially having stories like Wayward Children by Shauna Maguire, the writing there describes these worlds as such intense places that while reading it, I always see the world in front of my eyes, and I didn't see Everland in front of my eyes really. And so I think maybe it's bad that I compare them, but I think it's kind of inevitable, and it just couldn't really keep up with this level of world building. Now, as for all of these contemporary elements, I thought those were done incredibly well though. I will leave, first of all, some content and trigger warnings in the description down below. So in case you have any, definitely check them out, because this definitely deals a lot with mental health stuff. Not in the main character himself, but his dad, for example, has agoraphobia, and yeah, there's just some stuff going on when it comes to side characters and minor characters. So definitely check out the trigger warnings in case you have any triggers. And this is also an incredibly diverse novel. A lot of the characters are queer. We definitely have gay, bi, and pan rep on page. Sometimes in minor characters, the main character himself is gay. We have several people of color, and in general, Everland is obviously filled with people from all kinds of ethnicities, because there's, as I said, doorways from all kinds of places in the world. So Everland is just really this like place where people from everywhere find themselves. One of the things that I liked most about this was really what Everland represented and the themes that had to do with it. Again, as I said, it is really a tool for storytelling and character development, and I really, really enjoyed what Sophie Cameron did with Everland and how it influenced the characters' actions and the characters' behaviors. It was so fascinating to read, and it dealt a lot with the theme of escapism, if escapism is good or bad, and the balance that you have to have with escapism becoming addicting. I really like those themes, and while I think that that's always a topic in any kind of books that are about portal fantasies, here it was really such a strong theme and very strongly shown in a lot of the characters and really represented in the decisions that they made. And I just really, really enjoyed that. I also really love the family dynamics. I really realized that I think it is really not a common thing for main characters in YA books to have more than one sibling. So for some reason, I was already really excited that Brody had a brother and a sister. I feel like that really is a thing that doesn't happen too often, and I like the dynamics between the siblings, but I also really liked Brody's dynamics with his parents. As I said, his dad is agoraphobic, and I think that this is such a complex relationship that Brody had with his dad because of his agoraphobia. And it does talk a lot about how, you know, being agoraphobic, or in general any kind of mental illness, is an illness like any other illness. You know, these things like you wouldn't tell someone with a broken leg to just get over it, but then at the same time also Brody sometimes just being upset and angry at his dad and having these thoughts of like, why is he not working? Why is he not doing this thing? And I just thought that it was handled with care and just exactly how I think this kind of relationship would be, which is again just very complex. I just think that it was so well done because Brody always knew when he had these thoughts, when he was angry at his dad, he basically called himself out every time. So every time he would be like, I know it doesn't make sense, but right now I'm just irrationally angry. And I just think that is so good. And that's exactly what I want when you include these kinds of things. You know, you don't always have to have perfect representation where everyone accepts everyone and everything is fine and perfect. I want this. I want just the complexity of these issues and of these relationships. I also really loved so many of the friendship dynamics. Brody obviously has this group of people that he goes to Everland with every week, and I really, really like their little group. But then we also have Brody's best friend, and their dynamic very much gets influenced by Everland as well, and by the group of people that Brody spends time with in Everland. And that was another aspect that I thought was really well done. The one thing that I will say is that there is, I wouldn't even call it like a male-male romance, but there is like a little bit of a male-male relationship developing, and I really love romantic storylines, but I just don't really think that in this case it was necessary or well done. In a way, I get what the author was trying to go for, but I think it would have worked just as well if these two characters would have just been friends. I think that, you know, this could have been maybe even a stronger bond. That's the thing. I don't have issues with romantic relationships at all, but I want them to be well written and to be well developed. And I just didn't think that this book had enough time to do that. And so I felt lackluster about the romantic relationship and just think it could have been much better to just I don't mean just as in friendship is lower than romantic, but I just think that it could have been on a platonic level and it would not really have taken away anything from the story. On the contrary, it would not have made me think, oh, I think there wasn't enough development in this romantic relationship. So I don't think the romance is bad, and it's also not really insta-love because it definitely happens over a couple of weeks, but at the same time, it does kind of feel like it comes out of nowhere, and you can see it. That's the thing. It's one of those things where like you can see it already coming. Like you know immediately that something is, brooding there. But then when something romantic actually does happen between them, it's kind of just like this thought of, okay, but like it kind of goes from like 0 to 100. And I just thought that it didn't have to be that way. I think that there were so many really well done dynamics in this book. And again, I just think that this totally would have worked as a friendship. So it kind of just feels like, why did it have to be romantic if there wasn't enough time to develop that? So that was another thing that I was just a little bit disappointed in. Again, could have been either just better developed or just not there at all. But also I do kind of get what the author was aiming for, and there was definitely this theme of like, how do you live your life influenced by the person you're falling for? It was like a small theme, but it was there, and that's definitely something that I enjoyed. I think that's something that's like a super important theme in YA, where you kind of explore how romantic relationships and romantic feelings just influence you as a person, but especially as a teen, with the way you continue your life. Like, do you decide to like go to a different college because that's also where your significant other goes? All these kinds of things. That was definitely a little bit of a theme in there that was obviously attached to the romantic relationship. So in a way, I get it, and I think it was a good idea. I just wanted it to have a little bit more space within the story. Overall, I think if you like YA contemporary that have magical elements in there that kind of influence the storytelling and the character development, or if you can live with a portal fantasy where the world is not, or the world building and the world descriptions are not the important part, I would definitely recommend this. I think it is a really, really enjoyable, fun read with a lot of really serious, intense topics and themes. And I think that Sophie Cameron did a really, really good job at seamlessly including diversity. And so I think that this is a really great book. I had some issues with it, but I do think that if you're interested in the story and in the themes, that you would definitely enjoy it. So yeah, definitely a recommendation from me. And I've now read 2 books by Sophie Cameron, and I'm really excited to see what she writes in the future. So yeah, that's all of my thoughts on Last Bus to Everland by Sophie Cameron. Now I obviously want to know any of your thoughts, if you have already read it, or any of your excitement, or if you're planning to read it. And yeah, I make new videos every Wednesday and Sunday with occasional reviews on Friday. So click subscribe to never miss anything and hit the little bell so you get notified as well. And thank you so much for watching. I guess I'll see you soon. Bye!